Alberta. I'm Amber Rowden. I'm the community storyteller in Calgary. If you haven't been to Lunch Without Lunch before, this is our weekly connection to understand what's happening in the tech ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, and just make connections and build new things that are happening in Alberta. If you're new to Lunch Without Lunch, please drop an emoji on the virtual screen and let us know that you're new. If you're new to Lunch Without Lunch in person, please raise your hand. Yay! Sean's new. Welcome, Sean. It's great to have you here. So I just want to start with a land acknowledgement. So in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. If you are coming from somewhere else in the province, in the country, in the world, please feel free to share a land acknowledgement with us in the chat. If you would like to share a land acknowledgement with us at the beginning of Lunch Without Lunch, happy to have you come and do that. And we're always looking for ways to engage and demonstrate leadership and reconciliation. So if you'd like to come and chat with the community on that or demonstrate that, please contact me or Bridget. Bridget Legault is also our community manager. She will be joining us a little bit later. And she's also in Calgary as well. So what is Rainforest Alberta? If this video will load, we are a community of innovators, doers, dreamers who build new ideas. The video's gonna play.
What does it take to realize an idea? Or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
So we use 6 pillars to guide our conversations in action, and not all are weighted equally. Like any ecosystem, the right balance is crucial. So we measure these each year through our scorecard survey, which happens every year. It'll be coming out closer to January, so stay tuned for that. And usually Calgary and Edmonton has a different scorecard each year, but this year it'll be pan-provincial. So we will gain a capture of all the data in Alberta, obviously separating the 2 cities, but it'll be great to kind of have that data. Our social contract are 10 values that we work, live, and play by. If anyone's joining the community, we ask that you sign the social contract as it stands as a way that we interact with each other, build our companies, and just kind of live in the way that we conduct our values and beliefs. And yeah, so if you scan that barcode, that'll take you to the social contract. If you haven't signed it, I'll also throw the link in the chat so you can sign that. If you have a question that you're curious about, working in YYC Tech, how do you get connected to people? You're curious about today's conversation. You're looking for ways to start a business. You're looking for a co-founder, basically anything you're curious about. Our digital community powered by Inkly is a great place to find those resources. I always get asked too, well, I can use ChatGPT or Google. Well, those don't really connect you to the people that have those resources or give you those diverse perspectives. Definitely encourage you to scan that barcode, get on Inkly, and I'll also throw the link in the chat so you can connect that way. And During Innovation Week, we have an event called Discover the Ecosystem on November 15th, happening at Platform Calgary. It's going to be a fun and engaging event to discover opportunities in tech and entrepreneurship. So if you're curious about tech and entrepreneurship, it's a great way to discover new opportunities. And if you have someone that's not, that has never been in tech or innovation and is curious about it, please bring a friend that's interested in that. And we just want to show Calgarians that anyone can be in tech and innovation. It's not just a closed off sector. So if you scan that QR code, you can register. I'll also throw the link in the chat. And that is it for me. So I did try and connect our speakers today. I tried to connect their slides to the big screen. So we're going to try and see how this works technically. But I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker today. We have Sean Crump from Included by Design, who's going to be sharing their story and taking us on, for the next hour and sharing with us. So I will pass it over to Sean.
Thanks. Not sure next to my ears. You can hear me.
Yeah.
It may not be probably not, but I'll do my best.
Can everyone hear
clear.
Sean?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Perfect.
Excellent.
See if we...
Hey everybody, my name's Sean Crump. Really excited. I'm gonna try talking to you guys and to you guys somehow at the same time. We're gonna see how this goes. I founded a company called Included by Design. Before that, I had a company called Universal Access. We've been in accessibility consulting for about a decade. Just recently, as of 2021, transitioned into more of a product-based solution, focusing on disability inclusion as a whole, as opposed to just providing resources for larger companies to improve their accessibility in the built environment exclusively. So if you could just jump to the next one, please. Okay. So yeah, I broke my neck when I was 19 years old. It's been a long time. I'm not going to tell you how long. But it fundamentally changed the quality of life, or at least the perceived quality of life I could have now living as somebody with a disability, as opposed to beforehand living without. It wasn't just a perspective I had for myself, but it was a perspective even my parents had on me. Getting out of bed was something to be rewarded, as opposed to just something you do to get up in the morning. And the environment that we kind of participate in and trying to engage with community was completely disconnected. So I've spent the better part of my professional career trying to figure out a way to address that and improve it. And so really focusing on a way to change the predisposition one has to somebody living with a disability, whether it's having a child with a disability or meeting somebody publicly with a disability. There's always a bit of a predisposition as to contribution, what their life may look like, or what they can do within that life. And it's not one that's favorable. And so my goal is to eliminate that as best possible, but also to create a company that changes the social and economic participation people with disabilities have within their community. So there's a pretty big social problem that exists. Under 50% of the businesses that are available in North America, less in Canada than the US, surprisingly, are actually accessible to people living with disabilities. The bigger challenge there is you can't identify which ones are and which ones are not. So if a business were to take the time, energy to create an accessible space, there really isn't a unique or easy way for somebody to identify that space could meet their needs. And if there are spaces that don't, the only way you can find that out is by visiting and realizing that in fact you can't get in. It creates a isolation and segregation unintentionally for these people, because eventually you just kind of run out of steam and you stop trying. to find these locations or stop trying to participate. We know the challenges it has on the mental health perspective because of COVID, what being isolated from community can do. And there's still 25% of our population living with disabilities today who are experiencing that, even though the lockdowns have been lifted. Jump to the next one. For businesses, there's a big gap, especially here in Canada. We have new legislation that's coming out. I sit on the Accessible Standards Committee for the federal government. It received royal assent in 2019. First milestones are actually coming out in 2024, where there'll be an expectation of compliance. And in order to receive grandfathering or, to claim undue hardship, there actually needs to be a roadmap on how they're going to achieve these new accessible criteria. There's also a social commitment or expectation of social commitment from the community that businesses are required to now make, and that's reported through any ESG or DE&I initiatives. DE&I is now DEIA, A standing for accessibility, and you'll see that starting to evolve and a lot more reporting as it comes to fruition. We wanted to create a way to provide that solution. As consultants, our impact was moderate at best, and we were really focusing on supporting the businesses on becoming more accessible, and had neglected to identify the impact or lack thereof that we were having on the actual community. We created a certification using 7 different legislated standards from around the world. Canada lagging in the G7 countries when it comes to accessibility. It was shocking to see how challenging it was to find spaces that actually met the criteria we created within that certification. Beyond that, what we wanted to do with Included by Design is we wanted to support from a training perspective, whether that's training the team to work amongst or with somebody with a disability, or to support somebody as a patron or as a client living with a disability. And then obviously creating the ability to inform both our clients as well as the community of people living with disabilities to identify accessible spaces, but also to track the progress businesses are making. Another big challenge with businesses that do elect to participate or improve their accessibility is the expectation is an all or nothing. A lot of the time, the story that's told, whether it's through media or social media, is about the destination, and businesses that are trying to incorporate accessibility or disability inclusion rarely are able to do it in a singular budgetary cycle. It's a progression. It's a movement towards a better environment by taking on immediate low-hanging fruit and incorporating larger elements of accessibility into the future budgetary allowances. We want to be a platform that allows that business to tell the story of their journey and stop focusing so much on that destination. So we developed Crucial. It's a map-based platform with a back-end dashboard that allows businesses to be identified through a level of certification, which allows individuals to determine for themselves what best meets their needs from that certification level, and utilize that level of access in a global basis. So no longer will they have to familiarize themselves with a localized building code standard, but really utilize a standard of recognition for a space being the certification, and allow that to kind of be their minimum bar. So if it's a bronze certified space that meets their needs adequately, then that or better anywhere else would be able to do and offer the same. Yeah, and we just really wanted to be able to speak and offer transparency to both sides of the market, allowing businesses to be comfortable in their lack of accessibility, showing progression towards a better environment, as well as individuals to easily identify what aspects of access are available within any given space. We created a pretty simple process in this so that we could offer our services to not just large companies, but also service-based industries in the hospitality. We looked at social participation in community, and a lot of time that's offered through restaurants, bars, and the hospitality service. You think about taking your grandparents for dinner or meeting up with friends or doing something on a social basis. Oftentimes that involves like a restaurant or bar or something in that hospitality space. The challenge is they work within very, very tight margins, and to work as a consultant or to offer our services in a traditional sense, our price points were just nowhere that could be met with kind of the restaurant industry. So we've digitized a lot of our process, expedited kind of the onboarding process as well, to allow variant of businesses to participate in this. Our target market right off the hop is the restaurant industry with the dashboard. We can offer our services to larger companies still in the traditional sense while allowing them to utilize the dashboard, but really wanting to make sure that there's a space and a value offer to the restaurant groups. Obviously, then moving into other verticals as we grow, both from a different industry perspective as well as we grow from a geographic perspective. We have a pretty comprehensive reporting process. It allows us to identify where the faults are, where the things that are accessible are achieved, and give a roadmap on how to improve it. So not only identify the problem, but provide the solution and allow businesses to be proactive in how they realize the solutions available. As I was speaking, there's a massive user base. There's a massive demographic of people living with disabilities, and this demographic's growing faster than the growth of our population. It's also the only demographic or minority demographic that anyone can become a part of at any point of their life. And in fact, most likely, everyone will become a part of this demographic at some point in their life, whether it's recovering from an injury or seeing disability as they age. This is something that will affect everybody at some point in their life. The reason we put income levels here is to show that there's a massive spending power as well in Canada alone from this demographic, and that it is something that should be prioritized from not just a social perspective, but also from an economic advantage for businesses. Spending power aside, there's also a hiring pool of talented resource of individuals that are underutilized. Post-secondary graduates living with a disability, only about 21% of them are employed, leaving about 80% of that demographic unemployed. We talk about finding and filling the employment gap. There's a pretty big group of people that could probably fill that gap. The goal isn't to shame businesses into doing the right thing. We actually do not identify any businesses that don't meet our accessible criteria. We support them on the back end with our dashboard and improving their accessibility, but only showcase those that are in fact accessible. Our goal is to be transparent about those businesses so that we can minimize the assumptions made as to whether or not a place would be able to meet the needs of somebody, and that they can self-identify for themselves whether or not what's available it is comfortable, they're comfortable with in meeting those needs. Some people, even with similar disabilities, have very unique preferences. And with those unique preferences, we want to make sure that we're being as transparent and realistic for all of them, so that they can set their own expectations of how to run it. So we've got V2 coming out next year, timed to launch at the same time as the Special Olympics here in Calgary. We're working on a few interesting marketing partnerships where we can better showcase the accessible businesses that are available within Alberta. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that anybody may have about the work we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean.
question actually. You're talking about how you sort of go into a business and you, oh gosh, oh wow,
Sorry,
pressure.
just so they can hear you.
Okay. You're talking about sort of going into a business and sort of doing your initial assessment and just sort of seeing where they're at. And sort of, you said like following the journey. How long does that journey typically take? Like, is it 2-3 years, or how long does it usually?
Often it depends on the type and size of business. So we would expect about a 7-year. So we build 7-year roadmaps. And that would be for larger businesses, asset ownership, property management groups, tenants that are within the business itself. They're limited on what they can do. So there's physical adaptations they can make, more so focused with those types of businesses on training, policies and procedures, different things like that they can implement, which are a little bit less cost preventative from that perspective. But I'd say about 5 to 7 years.
Wow. Okay.
Do we have any other questions, either in person or online? Yeah.
Got one. I'm curious why you started, or why you're gunning for restaurants as your beachhead.
Yeah, so it's I guess the first part of that is it's an industry that we weren't able to work with as consultants. So there was a loss leader for us. We still worked with the restaurant industry, but we wouldn't generate any real meaningful revenue or margin on our revenue. So the digitization was really to start engaging with businesses and industry. It's a blue ocean for us. There's also other consultants in accessibility that can't work with these businesses either. The margin and the revenue that we do make from larger buildings like Oxford, like Bull Valley Square, actually, who's our client, we're healthy there. But the impact it creates is minimal. When we think about impact to people living with disabilities or the community itself, restaurants was really something that impacted everybody and could be the quickest thing that we could see a change in, even just community representation. Oftentimes when I go to the restaurant, I'm the only person in a wheelchair there. I often use a, relatable experience. Like, if you were the only Black guy walking into a restaurant, would you feel super comfortable? If you're the only woman walking into a restaurant, how comfortable would you feel not seeing another part of your demographic represented within that space? And so with individuals living with disabilities, it's kind of the same thing. The more we can have community representation, I think the more comfortable other people would be in approaching and engaging with people with disabilities, but also the more comfortable people with disabilities would be in those spaces.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
The tandem of that, could I ask, are restaurants like, are they grasping this and wanting to use this, or do they need to be more aware that this is like something like crucial is available?
Yeah, our acquisition cost is high from an educational perspective. It took a little bit of experimentation to see what type of restaurants within the industry would grasp this, and that is portfolio or larger restaurant groups that have a number of restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
If it's like a restaurant owner who has just like the one-off restaurant, oftentimes they're less eager to participate right off the hop until we can demonstrate what actual revenue increases they would see. The restaurant groups are more interested in that dashboard side, like how can they showcase their social commitment and how can they better represent the efforts that they're taking, and display what that looks like. So that's not all restaurants, but hopefully one day.
Okay, V, we'll go to you and then we'll go to Carrie.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have a question. I've got a potential partnership for you. You probably already looked at it, but it's called Kello Inclusive. And it's an inclusive talent agency, exclusively representing disabled and visually different people.
Oh,
So
cool.
I think it might be a really great partnership for you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, V.
So I put it in the chat there. It's kelloinclusive.org.
Awesome.
Carrie.
Yeah, just wanted to say, just because you don't see another chair doesn't mean there's not another person with a disability there. I use a cane, not a chair.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. And there's also invisible disabilities as well, but still to make kind of a generalized point to a lot of people that don't experience disability or have any relation to it, I have to use the tools at my disposal, which is my wheelchair. 11% of our population use wheelchairs. So again, if you have a restaurant with, you know, a couple hundred people in it, there'd be more than just one wheelchair user from a statistical perspective. So yeah, I know that doesn't fully illustrate the entirety of the disability population, but again, I'm just trying to draw essentially a visual relation to what other people can relate to from their own life.
Right. Most people, even with my cane, most people look at me and dismiss the fact that I am differently abled.
Yeah, I find it's variable for a lot of different disabilities, especially the invisible ones. I think they have more challenge than those that are easily identified in communicating need, I guess.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. Do we have any other questions, either online or in person? No? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for
Yeah.
being here and sharing your story. And it was
Appreciate
really
the
great having you.
opportunity. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, I have a quick question.
Okay, so I guess we'll go into community.
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, I was just wondering, like, because you know, some of the restaurants that you would go to, you know, as you were saying, you know, tight margins, those kinds of things. When you have like, do you have any links to government for like grants or assistance from them that would help other small businesses or small restaurants, you know, make the changes and adaptations to welcome, you know, people with disabilities?
For sure we do. In our dashboard, and the way we actually write our reports, we write them in a way that can be drawn right from and put like cut and paste essentially into the grant applications themselves.
Okay.
As federal legislation comes about next year, there's a barrier-free initiative that they've set for 2040. So if you look at like the environmental grants for a net zero 2050 initiative, you can kind of correlate what those grants may look like as next year starts to kind of pursue that. And so we wanted to make sure that we aligned what we were doing with access to funding to support it.
Okay, good.
All right. Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, cute.
So yeah, we'll go into community announcements. If you have a story to share or you want to host someone on the podcast, join the Leaders Innovators Big Ideas podcast. We'd love to have you as a guest or a host. Libby.ca. And also I mentioned the Discover the Ecosystem event at the beginning of Lunch Without Lunch, but please join us there and invite someone that's curious about innovation or tech, may not have a background in that. We'd love to see you there. And next week, I believe we're virtual again. Virtual. So join us there. Yeah, we have Tara with TLC Careers, I believe, joining us. So that'll be a lot of fun. And does anyone else have any community announcements in person, online? Very quiet today.
Isn't it though? Look at everyone dropped off online.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting. If anyone has any feedback about in-person versus hybrid versus virtual, we get it ad hoc here and there. We're not going to run we'll run some polls on social media to get a better pulse of where people are at. But at some point here, we will be making a call on going just in person and just virtual from week to week. And we'll have a set schedule of that, I think, so that folks know, you know, the last weekend of the month, for example, not to say that's it, we'll be in person and we will start adhering to a more strict schedule. The reason we don't follow one now, because I get that question often, is just because of the mercy of all of the speakers and different places that we circulate to. We're kind of at the mercy of their schedules as well, and it's a lot of coordination. So we are partners here at the Open Learning Lab, so this will be a location We know that it's downtown, it can be challenging to get to, but take the train or carpool. And Platform Calgary, where we're also an avid partner.
Plus, it's fun to explore the city and see different spaces throughout.
And you can work out of here afterwards. No one's going to kick you out. And you can have access to students, other partners that are here. It's quiet here today because the students are on a break right now, I guess. But so interesting timing to book this. But hey, yeah. So anyway, pass your feedback on to us via the info@rainjb.ca or book time with Amber and I. We're always happy to chat about recommendations for how to spend this hour together.
All right. I guess we'll go into networking. If you're able to, please stick around in person and network. Virtual, hopefully no one else drops off, and network. This is where the magic happens. You make connections and new ideas. So I'll put you into breakout rooms just shortly. And thank you again, Sean, for being here. Thank you everyone for joining us online. Thank you to those that came in person. Really appreciate you coming out and supporting the in-person part of the event. It makes it 10 times better. So yeah.
10 times exactly. That's been
100 times better. Yeah, so thank you. Go network, have fun.